Seven, six, five, four, three, two, one.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of SportsTalk Philadelphia. For the first time in the history of LaSalle TV, yes, we checked it, we have a professional athlete on desk. He's the two-time Georgia State singles champion, the Georgia State doubles champion, an ACL national doubles runner-up, and a conference #1 runner-up. It's Drew Brown. Drew, thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me. It's going to be awesome. I know
we appreciate your time. So we've all had a lot of free time on our hands the last few months. And for a while, we had no sports to watch. So we got pretty big into cornhole. And when we got into it, we were like, oh, we're just going to watch cornhole. We'll talk about it. I'm sure it's a joke. Cornhole is seriously one of the most fun sports to watch on TV, what just seemed like an outdoor game. There is legitimate competition, and it is just exhilarating to watch.
Yeah, I mean, COVID's kind of been, I guess, a blessing in disguise for the cornhole industry. We made it on ESPN here and there in the last, I say, 4 years. But, I mean, in the last 6 or 7 months, it's really exploded. I mean, the fan base has just kind of took off. So, grateful enough, we've had heck of accomplishments in the last few months.
Yeah. I mean, I think something that goes really to it is ESPN just signed with the ACL a multi-year deal back in January of this year, obviously not knowing what would happen and the boom that would come with it. It's first time on ESPN in April. It had 338,000 viewers. So talk about how you think that the growth of the game is coming and where do you think is still to come with this great sport?
I mean, ESPN's been huge. We haven't had that kind of exposure. And I mean, really the sky's the limit. We can blow the ceiling off the place if we can really keep generating views. Right now, the ACL, the American Cornhole League, they're kind of working closely with the USA Cornhole. And their main goal is trying to get USA established cornhole teams so that we can finally get this sport into the Olympics and everything else. So we can kind of almost knock curling out of the water, you know. So I'm hoping that once we get to that point, then it can become worldwide. And then once that happens, maybe we can also generate the dollars that maybe even small time sports like poker or something like that is really trying to gain ground with their 7-8 figure payouts. And I mean, once that happens, who knows, you'll see people coming out of the woodworks to want to play this game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think a big part of your rapid success is the ACL social media team just does an outstanding job getting highlights up right as soon as matches end. I mean, I had no idea that there were multiple different types of cornhole shots. I was just used to, throwing it up, but I didn't the airmail. There was all these new things I learned. And a lot of that just came through your social media team, just constantly getting highlights up. I feel like I learned something new every single time I watch something.
Awesome. Yeah. And Trey Ryder, he's the social media director. Big shout out to him. He's absolutely amazing. And if you've ever watched any of the ESPN broadcasts, he's one of the analysts on there as well. So the guy that is pretty much talking about it the whole time on TV knows a ton about the sport and knows a ton about the marketing side of it as well, being our ACL media guy. So he's definitely a good person to have on our side.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. So we're talking a lot about the ACL and cornhole itself, but let's go a little bit into you. So, well, looking back at your biography, you played some serious high school baseball, third baseman, pitcher. Talk about what that whole experience was like and unfortunately contracting mono.
Yeah, that was kind of a crazy situation. My senior year, right at the end of our season, Yeah, I contracted mono. I was in and out of the hospital. I think they rushed me there 3 or 4 times by ambulance. I went from about 165 pounds down to 120 by the time I graduated,
Wow.
and that's in just over a month's time.
Oof.
I spent kind of my time after that trying to get back into, I guess, baseball shape and everything else, and I pushed my body so hard that I ended up tearing my AC joint in my shoulder working out, lifting, and everything else. So trying to figure out something to kind of gain that competitive edge and not really tear my body up any more than I already was. Within 2 years, I got back up. I weighed about 175, so I gained a bunch of muscle and everything else. But I mean, cornhole came to the rescue, and I started out kind of just traveling to local places. I'm originally from Ohio, so I was traveling to Columbus, Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, Akron, all that. And I was able to come away with some serious cash that kind of took off my career. And by then I'm Googling ways to be professional and everything else. And I was able to kind of get mentored by Ted Dillon down in West Virginia. And he was a big advocate of getting people involved to become pros and everything else. So he helped me get started. And before I knew it, I was kind of competing against the big names in cornhole. And now I like to believe that I'm one of them. So
Yeah, definitely. So my question is, you said you had a 2-year grace period, just trying to regain muscle, regain strength, build your weight back up. So
right.
what in that 2-year period, like an 18 to 20-year-old decided I'm really just naturally good at cornhole in the backyard playing with friends. You're like, maybe I should feel out some locals and see what happens. Or, I mean, how do you go from baseball to cornhole just in a short period of time like that?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of had an idea that baseball wasn't going to make me any kind of money. I mean, you'd have to really get up to the AAA
Yeah.
and the big leagues in order to do that. And after all that, I kind of came to realization that I got to find something else. And I was making $500-$600 on a weekend just traveling 20-30 miles just to throw bags. And I was like, oh, this is way simpler than pitching in the 9th inning, so
Yeah. So bouncing back off that, you said you're a pitcher. Do you think your pitching technique had any kind of influence on where your cornhole technique is now? I know it's 2 completely different motions, but
right,
does
yeah.
that have any kind of impact on your velocity, how high you throw it?
I think it does, and not necessarily physically,
Yeah.
but a lot of the mental game. I mean, people who I guess are just sitting alongside the boards and watching people throw, they don't realize that there's a huge mental game in the sport of cornhole. I mean, especially when you've got 9 cameras on ESPN and everything else in your face playing for thousands and thousands of dollars. I mean, there's nerves that come with that and everything else. And I think when I did pitch, the ball was in my hand. So everything was dictated on what I did. And I think that carried over to cornhole because I knew I could take my time. I could put the bag where I want it, kind of like pitching. I could place the ball where I need to. And I'm not looking at the hitter as to how good they are. I'm looking at myself as to how good I am. So I think it has a lot mentally that I can compare over from one to the other.
All right. Yeah. So kind of sticking to that mental aspect of it, we talked about how the current pandemic has really boomed the sport, but I'm sure as an athlete, a part of this group, it was a huge sense of uncertainty almost, where you don't know if you're going to compete, if you were the only sport competing throughout all of it, and just how to stay ready. So talk about a little bit what that was like.
Well, I mean, funny story. We jumped on a plane and went to Cleveland, Ohio. I live in Atlanta now, so I'd get on a plane, get up there. But we went up there, and this was kind of right when this whole thing started to develop. We got up there on a Wednesday. Our tournament started Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And Thursday, I think, is when they canceled basketball, canceled the NBA and everything else. So we're kind of scrambling to figure out what's going on. Everybody was kind of unsure in just about every sport. And then I think come Thursday night around 10 p.m., they finally ended up shutting down the very first national ever canceled. It was going to be the first national that was in Cleveland, Ohio. This thing sold out in about 15 minutes when it went live. I mean, this was supposed to be the biggest and best national that the ACL ever had. And now there's actually an article on it talking about the best national that never happened. I mean, we had to jump back on the plane Friday morning, Saturday morning, and head back home, not really knowing, what was going to happen to the other nationals. So the I think second or third national of the season was pending at the time, and then it ended up getting canceled as well. I believe that was in the Indiana area, but then they came out with the pro qualifying circuit, which is what everybody's seen on TV during the pandemic. So they followed protocol. We had to wear masks. We had to social distance. Had to step out of the box after every throw. And this was all something that was new that we had to kind of learn and work with. And I mean, I'm grateful for the ACL taking those precautions in order to have what everybody was able to sit on their couch and watch when there was no sports going on, no baseball, no basketball, no football. I mean, it feels to me like the ACL kind of saved sports for a couple months, but maybe that's my bias.
No,
Yeah,
go ahead.
So, I mean, a big part of that is definitely, I think the ACL figured out fastly that they could be a sport that can social distance. You can clean the bags. You can do whatever to have to keep everyone safe. And once the ACL kind of figured that out, it seems like other sports kind of tried to follow in suit. The ACL doesn't have to bubble just because cornhole, you're naturally 20 feet apart from each other. So definitely just how swiftly the ACL developed this plan, got back on TV in like 2 months. I mean, it was just fascinating to watch, and it was great to have sports back.
Yeah, I mean, they did everything they could in order for us to be able to still compete and kind of keep everybody's muscle memory going. And it was definitely awesome. It was very cool.
Well, great. I mean, Drew, I can't thank you enough. I'm out of questions. Sam, do you have anything else?
Yeah. So I have a few actually.
Oh,
So
cool.
we were going through some of your matchup stuff, and we saw that you've lost every single match to your cousin Wes. Can you go into that a little bit?
Oh yeah, well, this story I tell a lot. People ask me how I kind of really got into practicing a lot and everything else. When I was in Ohio, I mean, the winters were cold up there, so it was a Thanksgiving day, probably about 15 years ago. He brought a set of cornhole boards over and ended up whooping me pretty good. And I didn't take loss well then. And I was like, you know what, next year when we have our Thanksgiving dinner, I'm going to end up coming back and you're not going to beat me again. And he just kind of laughed and kind of brushed it off. So at the time, this was my junior sophomore year of high school. And so I'm living with my mom's house, and I tied her chandelier to the banister so I could move it out of the way. I set the boards up inside her house from the living room to the dining room and practice all winter long. I mean, it was literally 4 or 5 months of vigorous practice, just playing every day, hanging out. And that next year came back and my words held true.
There you go.
But yeah, I got to give him a lot of credit. He still plays today. When I go up there and visit with family during the holidays, he's always got his boards out, and we get some throws in though.
So let's talk technique for a minute. So when I play cornhole, I always have to have something in my left hand, whether it's 12 fluid ounces or a little weight. Do you find that, I know for a lot of people, cornhole is more casual, so they usually have a beverage in their other hand. Do you find a lot of people holding weights of kind of like similar nature, just like something that's like maybe like half a pound? Does that throw off like your counterbalance at all while you're trying to throw?
Me personally, I mean, I switch it up. Sometimes I'll have a drink in my hand. Sometimes I'll hold the other 3 bags in my other hand. But when it comes down time for me to get serious, I try to take it 1 bag at a time. It's not necessarily a weight distribution thing. Is more of a mental thing where I just hold 1 bag, and this is the bag that I need to place wherever I need it to go. And then I worry about my other bags, pick it up and move on. But I do see name call out Adam Hissner. If you want to Google Adam Hissner, he's always got a beverage in his hand. He's been on ESPN a couple times, and that dude is unreal. So there's different techniques. I mean, everybody does everything a little bit different, and
Yeah,
in
I
order
guess
to get the same result.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some people have just played so long like that where they always have something in their hand that even if they're playing professionals, you need to try to make it a more casual setting just by having some. It's not even a weight displacement thing, just having something in their
absolutely.
hand is definitely
Yeah.
mental. So one more question for you. Do you
Yeah.
prefer playing singles or doubles?
I like doubles. It gives me a chance to kind of compete with somebody, and I like the part where you win a game and you can kind of just relax with each other and hang out to the next game's called. But the singles aspect, I mean, the highlights, it's all on you. I mean, you have nobody to blame. The payouts are better because you're not sharing payouts with anybody as well. So I really do like singles because that gives me more opportunities to make big shots, and I'm kind of a spotlight guy, so I like people to be around. I like people to watch, and I like to show off for the cameras. That gives me more opportunities.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Camera's
Right.
always on you. Sam actually made me think of a question from that. You talk about some people having a preference holding something in the other hand. We see in almost every sport that when analytics kind of gets into it, whether I don't know what it would be for every specific sport, it always kind of just puts a different aspect to the game. Do you see that coming? Where we talked earlier about like the shot types and stuff like that. Do you see that kind of coming with your game, whether it's spin rates of the bag or just surface area of the table, stuff like that?
Well, I know Sports Science actually did an episode on cornhole a few years ago, and they went over like height of the bag and
Really?
spin rate as to from an airmail compared to like a block bag and a push bag. So they did a lot of that. And then bag manufacturers nowadays are almost making their bags to a player's preference. So if a player wants to continuously do a defensive game where they just block the hole and go over top and this and that, or maybe they want to just slide it in every time, they make the bags more friendly to where if they miss a little left or a little bit right, it'll still grab the hole and go in. But of course, a lot of the bag manufacturers, they have to be certified. So it has to go through the ACL, and then the ACL will approve what bags can be shipped out to each ACL Pro and everything else. And they've got a tight grip on that just to kind of weed out anybody trying to cheat or anything. We had a couple years ago. It wasn't an issue because it wasn't caught, but there was rumors going around that some of the players were actually putting BBs, like gun BBs, in bags, and it was helping them fall into the hole because they had more weight to it.
Mm-hmm.
So the ACL heard about that, and they quickly got a hold of all these rights and everything else so that they can keep that from happening in the future. And it's definitely helped when it comes to rules and everything, rules and regulations.
Sounds like the Tom Brady of the Cornhole League. That's terrible.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't taking any weight out of it. He was putting weight in it.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said that it's a bag problem when I miss the board because I'm usually insanely accurate.
You and me both. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna make the hole every time, but it's usually just a bag issue, like the weight's off. So I'm gonna have to get in touch with these bag manufacturers just to get my game a little bit better, Drew.
All right. Well, Sam, are you good now? Because I think we've taken up enough of Drew's time.
All right, Drew. Well, thank you so much for joining us over Zoom. We're definitely going to be seeing more of you on ESPN soon, and I wish you the best of luck. I wish the league the best of luck for the future, and I cannot wait to see what's to come for you guys.
I appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Thank you for having me, and hopefully the ACL is here to stay.
Oh, it is.
If it is, we got 5 new #1 fans. Trust me.
I like to hear that.